July 15th, and it's SupConnect Live. Thursday, where I am, wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, had a great day, or starting a great day. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to Canada, Western Canada, to talk with someone who I have not met in person, where a lot of the people I get to interview I know already, but we had a really serendipitous exchange. Are you Kristen Thomas? And we'll be talking about what it was that got Chad to contact me. Remember that these are live, but they're recorded. So if you have friends who missed it, hi Joseph Silva. So fun to see we have some regulars who show up. They do get recorded immediately to the IGTV on SupConnect, and then they go to SupConnect's YouTube channel as well as mine, KT Outside. So please, we're going to be naming some names because we could not believe all the overlap and the people we know and the programs we've been involved with. So I'm really excited to get to know Chad Guenther. I'm probably pronouncing his last name incorrectly. Better. Expeditioner, originally whitewater guide even before stand-up, and then got into stand-up early in 2011. And but I think even more than that, this is a young man who in causes, and we're going to be talking about a number of different ones, included ones that he started and one that we both have played a part in. So I'm inviting Chad on as Project All In, and that's his Instagram handle, and we'll be definitely talking about that. So Chad should be popping up momentarily, and super excited for everyone to be joining us in chatting. Okay, where'd you go? I invited you. There we go, send request. Hope you're all having a great day. And I know we have some weather crazy stuff in some places. I hope you're staying safe if it's super hot where you are, or had some storms. Whatever it is, be safe. Let's see, we're telling your father. Okay, we got that. Uh-oh. I'm here. Troubles. Oh no, not troubles. Unable to join. Sometimes there are, you might have something on your phone that is blocking you from this live. These interesting social media rules change quite a bit. So make sure you follow SupConnect and that you don't have any kind of blocks. Hi, Bruno. Hi, Veronica. Jared. I love the names. Kirsten from the islands. Still want to come visit you sometime. Elliot. Hola. Okay, so we also have, what's up, KT? Well, I might try inviting you from your other Instagram, which we're going to talk about too. 1 Ton Tina. Van life, that's going to be a topic of conversation. Do any of you guys have converted vans? There he is. So who knows why, but I can see you now. Can you hear okay?
Made it.
Yay. There he is.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So I think you ended up being signed on with your 1 Ton Tina Instagram account, which is perfectly fine because we're going to talk about van life too, amongst all the other things.
Awesome.
Great. Well, it's great to meet you. I was just saying at the very beginning, most of the people I've interviewed I've met before, and I don't think we've met in person unless we crossed paths and didn't remember it. But
No.
so many things in common and so many people that we both know and passions for a lot of the same things. Of course, what brings us together on this is the water. And is specifically stand-up paddling. You were already a water guy. 2006 is when you started guiding, I think you said, whitewater?
Yeah, that's correct.
But 2011 is when you first got into stand-up. So before we get into all the other great stuff, let's talk about your stand-up story.
Yeah, I guess, background of being a whitewater guide, rafting, kayaking, canoeing. And after doing that, I lost connection with the water a little bit. And my way back was via stand-up. So I just took a break, because life got in the way, as it does sometimes. and a buddy of mine owned a shop, and he started selling these stand-up paddleboard sups, whatever the heck they
What are
were.
they?
And yeah, and I actually came in there looking for a raft because I wanted to get back into it. And he's like, "You got to try one of these." And it was a Bad Fish Boardworks MCIT, and I was like, I don't know. All right, twist my arm. It's on the water. Let's give it a shot. And, lo and behold, it literally has taken me to some really amazing places, and been able to connect with such amazing people. And I imagine we're going to talk about a few of them here, but
Yeah.
it's just, that's really what got me into it. And then my background, of course, just kept carrying me through. So it was just a really good way to, I kind of already had some skills, so we kind of just jumped in full tilt.
Yeah. So you're in Western Canada. Have you been
Mhm.
for your whole life? Is that the roots? And where is the shop? You can give them a shout out that you
Yeah, Escape Sports in Saskatoon, and that's actually where I grew up. So I grew up in Saskatoon, which is more east of where I am now, which is Canmore, Alberta, or the Rocky Mountains. And so long time connection with those guys, love them dearly, big supporters of KCPO and what I've been doing, and which would probably made it easier to trust them on their stand-up advice. But yeah, I grew up in Saskatoon. I went away to school in Alberta. I spent a few years in the U.S. doing some trade work, but always knew that I would end up being in the mountains. So that's where I am now.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about your business. So stand up brought you back to the water. You had been a guide, but I assume keep calm and paddle on. Was that what the business was called when it was whitewater, or is that something new since stand up?
Yeah, that's something new. So basically, what happened was I can even track back to the day that I bought that board, Kristen. Like it was,
Really?
yeah. So I bought that board, and later that day, I got some concerning news from my family, and my family's had a longstanding history with mental health issues, and
Hmm.
this is really where Keep Calm Paddle On, or KCPO, has grew from. It grew from me not knowing how to help. So I bought the board. I went downtown to the local coffee shop, and I sat there just racking my brain, feeling really bad about spending a lot of money. And I was like, you know what? I could just, help my family out with the money, but once it's gone, what, what good is it? And like, what have I
Hmm.
done? Have I just put a Band-Aid on it? And so I just had a couple coffees, kept thinking, and that's really where KCPO grew, was at that coffee shop that day. And I thought about how I can make this board speak to the issues of mental health and the problems with that people see in just coming forward and being open with their struggles. So I planned this fairly lengthy solo expedition on the board that I just bought, hoping to generate some awareness and hoping to
Yeah.
use social media. Back in 2012, social media definitely wasn't where it is now,
Hmm.
and so that's kind of where KCPO came about, and then from that, lots of other little things in the periphery have spawned from it, but that's really how it started.
Yeah. So where was that initial expedition, and how special that you realized right away that this was going to be something good for you, and it reconnected you, and that how wonderful that you're reaching out and you're doing good in like you said, all the different ways of trying to help connect people and bring awareness, and because you
I
had that tool to let you do it, but it's good for your own mental health too, right?
You hit it right there. I was doing this with this idea that, let's get the word out. If I can speak to mental health and struggles, and stand up for some people, maybe others will too. But at the end of it, I was like, man, this trip did just as much for me personally, to have that connection with
Hmm.
the water again that I had lost, as it did for the awareness campaign in itself. So that initial trip was, um, I was in Saskatoon at the time. I couldn't wait to leave when I was a 17-year-old. I was like, this place is flat, it's boring. There's no, there's no mountains, there's no big white water. I just couldn't wait to leave.
Sounds like a 17-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. And while I was sitting there thinking, I was like, I have never given my hometown a chance to really explore it more. So I did a third of Lake Diefenbaker, which is a very big lake, and that flows into Gardner Dam, which is one of the largest earth-filled dams in North America.
Mm.
Below Gardner Dam is the South Saskatchewan River, which flows right into my hometown of Saskatoon. So I just started thinking, how can I do this, but do it locally? And that's the trip that I came up with originally, and it was about 300 kilometers, and far beyond my paddling experience at the time. Not so much the paddling in general, but to stand up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in a canoe or kayak, I'd done many multi-day trips. I was no stranger to that, but I was definitely a stranger to standing up for that long of time. And sometimes you got to love that foolishness and that like, yeah, I'll do it. Come on, why not? So 300 kilometers, partly lake, mostly river. Pack everything that you need. Sleep on the beach, and I really realized that I shouldn't have left town with such a poor attitude, because we have some of the most beautiful river valleys that I never really knew about. And it just so happens that the section that we now have been paddling for the last 8 years under KCPO is part of the Trans-Canada Trail. So it is protected. It is now voted as a must-do paddle. And yeah, we should really explore our backyards a little bit more before we're eager to leave, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that, what you have in your backyard. Wonderful that you appreciate it so much now. So
Mm-hmm.
while we're on sort of expeditions, I mean, you're wearing a stand hat. That is
Mm-hmm.
someone, Norm Hahn, who I think we both know and
Mm-hmm.
value, and is an amazing guy who's done a lot. That's the name of a movie and a movement.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you first cross paths with Norm?
So I work for a company still to this day called Raven Rescue, and I'm an instructor for them. And I
Mm-hmm.
teach technical rescue, so rope rescue, swiftwater rescue, ice rescue, jet boat, all that sort of stuff. And I was staying up in our headquarters in Smithers, BC, and that and while I was there, Norm was on his way back from the coast, and he knew my boss previously. So Norm happened to be spending the night there as well. So, he would connect with my boss, Walter, both, very amazing people in their own right. But yeah, little did I know, Norm and I shared a cabin that night, the guest cabin at the Raven Rescue headquarters, and we just got to talking. And I can't remember if I had just finished my first expedition for KCPO or if I was about to do it, but I know there was just plenty of talk about paddling in general, and we've really kind of been connected since that day, and have been working together, and yeah, yearly surf trips. So
That's wonderful. That's so
mm-hmm.
wonderful. And I'm wondering if that's maybe what led to, you did a crossing with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
well-known people, and
Mm-hmm.
not just from Canada. Morgan Hoistry was there, and Jack Bark, and Lena Gautis. Who else was on? Norm, you. There's a couple more people.
Yeah,
Oh,
Simon
George
Whitfield,
Plessick from down here.
George Plessitt,
George.
yeah, Rock
Yeah.
Frey. It was star-studded as far as paddling goes, and Olympic athletes, and I was like, what the heck am I doing here?
So
But
who initiated that one? Was it Victoria to
well,
Vancouver or the other way?
other way, Vancouver to Victoria, and it was all in the name of men's health, and it was, I was the naive stand-up paddler at the time. I was like, well, I just finished 300 kilometers. I should be able to do 150 open ocean, no problem. Prairie boy, should be no problems. But yeah,
Like
what
you
an
said,
amazing
say yes
experience.
to, sometimes you just need to say yes to these things.
You're right. You're exactly right. I think opportunities, you know, end up being regrets for a lot of people, right? Or missed opportunities.
Mm.
And it always seems to be something that I strive for, is that when something like that comes up, it's like, just make it work. And that was one of those, I haven't done it since. I'm not sure I need to. It's nice to know I can get there without taking the ferry if it really came down to it. But yeah, what an amazing opportunity.
That's great. So that was when you were fairly new to everything, but was that from knowing Norm? Because I don't even
Uh,
remember who initiated that one.
yeah, so Simon Whitfield, he was, he was one of our Olympic athletes for Canada, amazing athlete, really good human being. And he was actually married to someone I went to high school with.
Mm.
So she got a hold of me and said, Chad, I see you're doing this and that, and Simon's got this thing on the go. What do you think about joining? And I was like, of course, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
no, you don't have to say anymore. So we just kept chatting, and it was quite the process. It was about 6-7 months before we actually shoved off in June of 2014, and it was, yeah, it was a lot of anticipation. What I thought I was doing to get ready was um, definitely not enough. Just, yeah, being so new to the sport, and like I said, a prairie boy with big ambitions, and one day finding himself on the ocean. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I do want to throw in though, so even though, I don't want to be too flip about say yes and do anything, you have an amazing background. I mean, you were just talking about teaching rescue.
Hmm.
I believe you work in the fire department by trade, and
That's correct. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not like you're not, you have the safety and the knowledge and the water
I,
skills. So we don't want just anyone to go out and do a zillion mile ocean paddle without that background. And you're young and strong, but to your
Chad,
point, stand up is different than other water sports and does use some different muscles. So standing all day long.
totally. Totally does. Yeah, Chad says say yes to everything is not quite the motto we should probably have, but I feel like I have a decent enough background to have a good, risk value, risk assessment to
Mm.
what I get into, and
Hmm.
I'll definitely say no to things that I feel are just not something I can do. But and always there's the little bit of the outlier of like, yeah, this might be out of my wheelhouse, but there's good people around me, right? There's good people around me, there's safety around us, and then that makes it a little easier to say yes to.
Well, as someone quite a bit older than you, I mean, learning and growing is just a part of how you stay vital. So, got to keep
Hmm.
moving and
Yeah.
at all stages of life. So, it's always fun to learn and do new things. So, there was keep keep calm and paddle on, which
Hmm.
it sounds like you don't usually say the long thing. You've got those the shortened
Yeah.
initials is how it
KCPO.
usually
Yeah.
goes by. Yeah. And is that are you teaching? Is it beginner instructing? Is it more guiding? I know it's morphed into more the cause thing. It
Hmm.
sounds like.
So it's really just a grassroots mental awareness campaign, and what it's really, it's an annual trip is what it is.
Okay.
So I
Cool.
take people down the river for like I've shortened that original trip that I did. We've shortened that up to make it a little more accessible. And one of the really neat things about this particular section of river and what we're doing is that you don't need a ton of experience. Back to what I said about being surrounded by people that have your back, have the training that they need to have to host people on the river. It allows us to take people that don't have a ton of experience, want to experience a multi-day expedition on a stand-up, and it also pushes them, like quite far outside their comfort zone. And that's a lot about what mental health and
Mm-hmm.
asking for help is about, right? Like, we feel like we're alone in this, we feel like we don't have support, and then we want this trip, and it just does it naturally. You can't not have a trip like this and it just not teach you something. And what it does is it shows you that, when it gets windy, we're going to take the paddler's bags, the paddler that's struggling, we're going to take their bags and we're going to disperse it amongst the group. And then that way, that paddler is going to have a much better time of using the resources that they have, right? Whatever strength they have left in that tank is going to be much better suited when they're not carrying 100 pounds, right? Maybe when they're carrying 50, maybe when they're carrying 0 pounds. But there's a lot of relatable instances in this trip, and people are laughing and singing and crying and asking why Chad asked me to do this with them. And
Well, I saw one video bit, we can't show that here, but it looked
yeah,
amazing and you really had a big group. And so is it each annual trip? Is it just a day? Is it a multi-day thing? Is it a certain distance?
so we call the flagship trip is the one that I'm talking about, is the three
Hmm.
day 150 kilometer river expedition, and it's all class one river, meaning that there's no rapids, there's no great discernible risks as far as the river goes. We know that water's dangerous anyways, but or can be, but it's really quite a beautiful, just freely flowing river with beautiful sand beaches. You don't even really realize that you're in Canada or Saskatchewan for that matter. And so that's our flagship trip. And then every so often we get the opportunity to run or host a race, like the KCPO Sup Cup here in Canmore. We've done that, oh geez, I think 3 or 4 years now, and that's just a fun 1 day race. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about KCPO Cayman, in the Cayman Islands. So
I was just going to ask you about that because someone who actually shared that this was happening, I think it's Yasmin or Jasmine
yeah,
Muratosh,
yeah,
talked about an 80-mile in the Cayman Islands from Little to Grand Island. So yeah.
yeah. So Yaz is my dear friend. We've known each other since we were very young, and in Saskatoon, and then he left to go to the Caymans to work, and he's been there ever since. And kind of on a whim, we had lost contact, and I was like, man, I should just go see him. And so after that first KCPO expedition, I went down there, and we got to talking, and I told him about this trip and stand up, and he'd never been on one before, and it was all still pretty new, the whole sport for us in Canada anyways. And he's like, it doesn't matter what it takes, I'll be there. And he was there next year, and he's been there every year since, except for the COVID kind of pause on everything last year, but he's been there every year since. And what he's done is he's taken KCPO and he's taken it down to the Caymans, and he's made it his own. And it's become a beautiful platform down there where he has done, like he said, he paddled from Little Cayman to Grand Cayman, which is 80 to 100 miles open ocean. No one has ever paddled that before. He's gone around the whole island of Grand Cayman 3 times, individual times. Maybe that's the next trip, is 3 times in one go. But and he's also done day events, and he's done paddleboard lessons for kids, and all the money that they've raised down there has gone to foster kids on the island and special needs kids, as well as the animal shelters. So kind of the neat thing about KCPO is that we're not structured and so rigid that someone couldn't just take it and be like, you know what, I'm going to stand up for this, and that's it. I'm going to do it. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about it. And he's done a really good job with that.
Well, I love that. And we've got Kirsten Cousins. I don't know if you know her from the
I
Caymans
do.
is
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a well-known person from there.
Yeah.
I always,
She's, yeah.
yeah.
What a great human being she is as well.
Mm.
And such a big supporter of KCPO, and just, embodies being that spokesperson for overall health and the water and the connection to it. So that's, the Caymans is a very special place for me, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you talk about, that things like this do spread and multiply in different ways, whether it's growing in one spot or reaching out in different. And there are so many great people in the paddling world,
Mm-hmm.
and so many great causes. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason we're talking today is because of one gentleman who's now gone. I have to make sure I don't cry.
Yeah, likewise.
I actually met Bob Purdy at Calavita Classic. Do you know that race?
I do.
So that
Yeah.
was the first time I had gone to Canada.
Yeah.
And I met some great people on Facebook in Vancouver and said, hey, there's this really cool race up in the Okanagan. I've never been there.
Yeah.
So I managed to get myself with work to Vancouver and then thumb a ride with some Facebook friends who I'd never met. But that was the first time I met this amazing man who paddled during his lifetime consecutively every day
Mm-hmm.
for, it was over 2,100, I think,
Mm-hmm.
until his health unfortunately made it. But his message was change. You can be the change. And he had his own Paddle for the Planet,
Mm-hmm.
causes environmental, but I think he really got a lot of people going, don't you think, over his lifetime? And
Oh, without a doubt, Bob was, yeah, I'm gonna try not to bust up about it, but what a special human he was, right? He he was just what you said. He wanted people to know that their what they could do to the world, however small, would make a big impact. And he was such a good storyteller too, wasn't he? Like he just he loved to promote people. He loved to just sit down and talk with you, and he was he was our sup elder, really, as he was called, and he was just that great ambassador of the sport.
truly was. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
been 3 years. I think we lost him in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
cancer. Um, but you contacted me and said, "Are you
Mm-hmm.
Kristen Thomas?
Mm-hmm.
I have something for you."
Mm-hmm.
Because you were visiting his
Sharon,
Sharon. Yeah.
yeah. So that's it. He I spent some time out in Ucluelet, which is down the road from Tofino on Vancouver Island,
Supposed to
and
be
that
gorgeous there.
it,
That's on my list, if you know, in that
it
area.
must be, yeah, it must be. So I'm down there quite a bit, and I was able to connect with Sharon again, which I hadn't since Bob had passed, and it was just a great meet up with her, and you can tell how much Bob impacted the people around him, and of course Sharon, and she had a bunch of stuff, and she's like, I don't know what to do with this all, and it just means so much, and I can't throw it away, right? Like, this all had very big meaning. Everything Bob did had a big
Hmm.
stamp of meaning and soul attached to it, and one thing he did was give paddles out to people that made big differences. And this one he wanted to give to you, and it just never worked its way around to you. And this was from 2014, and I don't know if you can read it there, but day 1480. So he was you know just over 2/3 of the way getting to that 2000 mark,
Hmm.
and you were the one that he chose for Women's Planet Paddler of the Year,
Yeah,
and what you were doing for the community. So,
which was so
uh,
lovely. And never have
mhm.
felt like I've done that much, but what a beautiful human that he recognized so many people in different ways. One of the things I was doing then, I don't know if you ever got to meet Leslie Kolovich. She had a
No,
radio show, and you probably saw her in some pictures because she went to all of his Paddle for the Planet
okay,
days that he had his annual. But she had a stand-up paddle radio show out of Florida, and I used to give the West Coast report. So I think that's how
okay.
somehow he first. No, I think I met him first at Calavita, but
Hmm.
we stayed in touch. But yeah, that's one of those special things. We hadn't connected in person when
Hmm.
he had it with him to
Hmm.
hand it over. And it's when, after you're gone, you're not going to go, what didn't want to bother her
Of
about
course,
that,
yeah,
and I
of
thought
course.
about that. I'm like, oh, I know he had that special paddle. I'm sure it's gone. So
Hmm.
how amazing that it
Hmm.
resurfaced. And
Hmm.
thank you for that. His
Yeah,
legacy
you're
lives
welcome,
on,
and
huh?
it absolutely will. And I think what you said there is really really poignant. Like, we often think that we need big change to happen. We need to have big change be a part of us for people to recognize, or for it to be important or valued. And bob Bob saw the little change, right, in
Mhm.
people and what they were doing, and all levels of it. And I think that's what made him so special, is that we might not think that what we do is a big deal.
Mhm. But he encouraged it all and brought out
Hmm.
the best in people for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
He was an
Yeah,
amazing human, made a
yeah.
big mark. And look, we had an opportunity to talk about him again. And I did check. Paddle for the Planet still has a Facebook page.
Hmm.
Um, you know, And so many people whose lives he touched have moved forward and done great things like you have, and expanded your campaign with your what's in your heart about mental health and awareness. And um, I know, as well as your paddle business, you also the your other Instagram account.
Hmm.
You also started from your fire department. You saw just a lot of mental health issues and suicides, and is that another nonprofit that you actually started?
Yeah, so that started in
All in.
Project All In, yeah, and so the, amongst those 9 years we've been doing KCPO, Kristen, was like we're asking the question, why can't people find the help that they need with mental health? Why are so many people struggling to get that help? And I think I was just asking, like, I've had that conversation so many times with people on the water
Mm-hmm.
during our expeditions. Like, we know why we're there. We're all there for the same purpose. So it's just so nice and free to talk about these things. And I'm like, how come this answer is so unique to every human, right? We're all so different. So everyone's path is going to be different on their way to finding that help. So I just reframed the question a little bit. How would asking for help be easier? How could it be
Mm-hmm.
easier? And that was in itself a hard enough question to ask. But what what I was able to come up with is, we have this challenge coin that a lot of first responders have. It really originated in the world wars, in the military. Soldiers were given a coin, meaning they were part of that battalion or part of that unit, and we have adopted that through fire departments and police departments and EMS departments. And you get this coin once you get hired. So it's kind of like, you're part of this group. Now,
Mm-hmm.
past that, there's not much that coin does other than it's just, it's your token of being a part of that group. So I thought, how could we make that coin do some talking for us? So we designed a coin that on one side is a debrief side, and what it does is when you put it on the table, it allows an agency to realize that we need to debrief these calls. We've never had a tool to debrief. We've got tools for everything. We've got
Mm.
ladders, hoses, bulletproof vests. We've got handcuffs and monitors and first aid equipment, everything we need to do the job, but we don't have a tool to ask for help or to start this conversation. So if we make talking like it's very hard to based on call volume to debrief all the calls that an agency could have in a day, and we seem to limit it to only the really important or really big or really traumatic calls, which is fair and that should be done. But oftentimes it's these little calls, like in life, these little
Mm-hmm.
events that kind of
Mm-hmm.
pile up and catch us off guard.
Right.
And so if we can start debriefing more and have a tool to do so that makes it a little bit more normal, when you flip that coin over and you see the help side, what happens when you see that help side is that the person across from you is now going to start that conversation for you. The person that presents it is the one that needs help, and that's why they've shown this side of the coin. So now, if we can make that conversation easier by having the person across from us in that crowded restaurant where we don't feel like we want to ruin the conversation by, telling somebody how deep and dark we might be at the moment, if the other person can start that for us, and all I have to do is shake my head yes or no, or give you a number of 1 to 10 on my fingers of where I'm
Mm-hmm.
at, all the hard work is done. Most of the
Hmm.
hard work is done. And we're hoping that, this tool can be just that, just a tactical piece that allows you to know that, hey, this is as normal as a ladder. This is as
Yeah.
normal as the uniform I wear.
Yep.
So there's nothing weird about this. There's nothing weird about asking for help. That's what we're striving for anyways. And
Oh, that's one really special. What an amazing gift you have given, because that is one of and you kind of had a vision 2018, because there's been so much of that and more talk about it, which is super healthy, about normalizing that
Mm-hmm.
we all need to be talking about this, that it's normal to be
Mm-hmm.
feeling not normal.
Mm-hmm.
But how neat to have a really specific tool to help in this group that they belong to, where you hopefully that belonging adds to, the feeling of safety to be able to open up a little, but to have somebody else help you do that, because it's never easy and it's so individual. And to your point that sometimes the smallest things can affect one person in
Mm-hmm.
just a traumatic way and somebody else it didn't. So we don't
Exactly.
always know that how our best friend feels, in the
E- Exactly. And I've been, of course, I want something for everybody in this world to make it easier for them to ask for help. But, I think my vision just needed to be a little bit narrowed and be like, well, let's just focus with this group and see what we can work with the tools that are there. Because to to say that that would work for civilians outside of the uniform, it might not, right? But we are looking at other ways that we can include different groups in this project, not just first responders, but right now
yeah.
it is first
But what a
responders.
great first responders, and like you said, coming out of military and stuff, that's a really important group to start with because of what
Yeah.
they do every day and what they do face.
Mm-hmm. And there's,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
just such a large number of people in this industry taking their lives or trying to,
Mm,
because they feel that they have nowhere to go,
mm,
and they shouldn't have these feelings because they signed up for it, right? Or there's this um, little bit of a suck it up and move forward, right?
mm.
That's part of the job. That's what you've asked for, and that's really not correct at all. Like we're still human at the end of the day under the uniform. We're just like everyone else. There's no
Yep.
denying that. So that means everything affects us the same way. So why should we place this particular group in this false bubble that says, no, you can't talk about it, you better suck it up, let's move on to the next one, kid? So
Yeah.
I
Well,
think just
yeah. Just
yeah.
thank you for what you're doing with Project All In. That is
Hmm.
amazing. I do want to return to the water, where
Yeah.
our happy place and
Hmm.
as we talked about, it, stress reliever, a place that we connect to, where we
Hmm.
find people that we connect to also. Um, do you have, I love that you switched your 17-year-old self's perspective of, oh, I got to get out of here, to really loving and encouraging people to go on that amazing stretch of water
Hmm.
that is home to you. But have you traveled much? Do you hope to? You've been to the Cayman Islands. Are
Hmm.
there other places you'd love to paddle
um
or explore?
well, that list doesn't really stop, does it, once you start?
No, it keeps getting longer the more
I
you learn.
Yeah, it does. I have, and I am taking a lot of advantage of my backyard now, which is the Rocky Mountains, and we have such beautiful rivers and such beautiful lakes up here. And so I spend a lot of time paddling here. But when I'm not here, I also like to spend a lot of time on the West Coast, so on Vancouver Island.
Mm-hmm.
And just, yeah, it was far too late in life when I started to go out there. So I feel like that's just, so close to me now, and such a good place to spend a lot of my time. Um, I think when I lived in the U.S. for a few years, I got the opportunity to paddle along the East Coast there,
Mm.
in the Appalachians, in North Carolina, in Tennessee, on the Ocoee River, on the Gauley River, um, and just, man, what beautiful geography, beautiful rivers that you
Mm-hmm.
guys have down there. And I think I really want to return there when I have the chance. Um, but yeah, definitely have some other bigger plans in mind for sure.
Great. So you do a lot of guiding and leading groups
Hmm.
on flat water. Do you still get out and do some whitewater?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We have a really great river just down the road from us called the Kananaskis River, and it is class 2, 3. It is really designed for our Canadian national slalom kayak team. So
Mm.
it has perfectly placed boulders, perfectly placed rapids, that really allow people. It's such a great learning river, right? Because we've got lots of big eddies. They're everywhere. And then you've got the big waves too, if you want them. And one of the river associations has built a surfing wave on the river, so that gets used quite a bit.
And
So,
have you tried that out yourself?
oh yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
fun. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's best of luck to both our U.S. and Canadian teams as they're off to the
Hmm.
Olympics.
Hmm.
Slalom is really fun to watch if you guys
So
haven't
good.
watched.
Such good paddlers.
Yeah, that will be amazing. So, how about there's a lot of offshoots. We've had conversations.
Hmm.
I haven't tried them, but there's the foiling and the wing and windsurfing. Have you done
Hmm.
much with wind sports or any of those offshoots of stand up?
No, I feel like I've got so much to learn still
Yeah.
on some other things, and again, being from the growing up in the prairies, for me to get on a wave and surf it was,
Uh,
a pipe dream. No pun
mhm,
intended, or pun
mhm.
intended, um, but so I like to spend a lot of my time just keep working on paddle surf skills.
Yeah.
And but man, some of the foils stuff that's getting out there now, like, man, it looks amazing.
There's some cool footage out there, yeah.
Yeah.
But there, like you said, just with stand up, I appreciate just what we can do so
Hmm.
much with just a board and a paddle, which is
Hmm.
just fantastic. Can you say there's a favorite part to SUP? Do you have a favorite part of stand up paddleboarding?
I think probably the exploration of it, I think, is my favorite part of it. Just, I mean, I could always do that in my kayak when I was whitewater kayaking, but that that wasn't the goal in a kayak for me. The goal in the kayak was to play in the waves, to get down the river, and and stand up has really changed that perception for me. And now it's all about what's off in that little nook and cranny. What's in that cove, what's around the corner, and
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite part of the sport for sure.
yeah, that is an absolutely amazing part. Yeah. In terms of equipment, I mean, you mentioned Badfish have been great through the
Hmm.
years. I happen to ride Infinity. Both of them used to be made early on. The
Hmm.
production side was made by Boardworks, but they both do their own production as well as, custom stuff for Infinity. But others that you've loved using, I know Norm has that stand board that I think is so cool. That's so Canadian
Yeah.
to me. Indigenous graphics on it, and
Yeah. So along with that is Sonova, that
mhm.
company out of Australia. So what
Yeah,
a really good
those are
company.
beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful boards. I have a few of them myself, and the touring and the paddle surf, and really well made, quite light and durable, and um, yeah, they're right now probably some of my favorite boards out there. But Badfish is what I paddle on the river.
Hmm.
Just really can't be matched. Badfish. So.
Yeah, well, they are whitewater people in
Hmm.
Colorado. They're
Yeah.
in Rockies, just a little south of you, a
Yeah.
lot south of
Exactly.
you, but in those same mountain rivers. Fantastic. Well, how special to get to meet you.
Hmm. Likewise.
Again, totally. I just felt like it was meant to be that you happened to this week. I had a cancellation, and I'm like, oh, can you join me on Thursday? Yes, I can. And we're going to meet face to face because you're going to hand that paddle over to me at some point in time. So we have to figure that one
Absolutely.
out.
Absolutely. We're
Yeah.
looking to do a tour of the U.S. here, probably in the fall or the spring,
Oh, neat.
with Project All In. So I'll be making my way down and talking to the different fire departments and military and things like that.
Wonderful. Great.
And we can't not bring boards and paddles and go visit Troy, Monster and Sea, and
Yes.
Estero,
Oh, yeah. I
and
wanted to mention those guys.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
great group of
yeah.
people. Now, how did you meet them? The Pacific
Um,
Northwest.
Yeah, Tofino is really where that connection is. Every year we go down to Tofino for,
Hmm.
a paddle surf competition, just a friendly little competition that goes on there. And every year it gets bigger and bigger. So October on the island is a really special time, and those guys started coming up. And yeah, you don't have to really dig too far in the stand-up world to start seeing some really, really good people, and
Yeah.
Troy and Teddy of Estero, and Dean Burke, like just a lot of really wholesome, good-hearted fellas down there.
Yeah. Well, I know travel is limited, but in a month I will be at Hood River, Oregon, and I that's where I see those guys sometimes too.
Yeah,
That's a good meeting spot if you
Hmm.
If the borders open up and you feel like a road trip,
Yeah. Well,
we
about that
can meet
time,
up
I'll be
there.
heading down to the coast, so we'll see. Maybe I can just jump across. I mean, I don't
Jump
want to paddle
across.
again, but yeah.
Just a few hours, just a few hours.
Yeah.
Any last tips about, gosh, you could give tips on a lot because you've started organizations and done things around the water, but maybe just more on that sort of expedition. You've given us some great advice, which is say yes.
Hmm.
Be with a little bit of a, make sure you're ready for what you're doing, but
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. Any other tips?
Um, I think just dive in. If there's something you want to try, if there's something, whether it's, getting on a foil, going on an expedition, get someone to teach you, get someone to take you, get some good knowledge, but just do it. Just jump in. Why not?
I love it. Yeah. Don't miss those opportunities. Yeah.
Hmm.
Instead, have something memorable. Well, thank you for taking the
Exactly.
time to do this. Sup Connect, thank you for
Hmm.
letting us have these interviews every Thursday. Again,
Yeah.
it's recorded and lands on their Instagram, IGTV. And
Awesome.
then by tomorrow, we'll have it up on a couple of YouTube channels. So
Cool.
if your friends missed it, tell them to come on over. It was so great to hear about all the wonderful things that you're doing and what you've done. And I wish you the best of luck. And I look forward to meeting you in person.
Soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good
Have a
day.
wonderful. You
Yeah,
too.
you too. Cheers.
Bye.